We have 10 most shocking deaths in sports history. Bro. Sports is a physical, it takes physicality. Some sports do. But like you dying on the field, nigga, you dying in the game, it's crazy. I don't think I heard nobody dying in a sports game. So this is new to me. I don't know what I'm finna watch. I don't know what to expect. But let's get straight into it though, chat. Let's get straight into it though. What is this?
On January 29th, 2000, 27-year-old right-winger Trent McCleary of the Montreal Canadiens dropped low to block a shot during a game against the Philadelphia Flyers. He had done it countless times before, yet this one was different, since the puck didn't slam into his shin pads or gloves, but rocketed directly deep into his throat. McCleary instantly clutched his neck as he turned blue and struggled to breathe in front of a horrified crowd. The medical team rushed onto the ice and performed an emergency tracheotomy right there at rinkside, slicing into his neck with whatever tools they had on hand to create an airway. Moments later, they raced him by ambulance to Montreal General Hospital, his life hanging by a thread. The diagnosis was devastating: a shattered larynx and a collapsed lung. And although multiple surgeries followed, McCleary's hockey career was sadly over. Yet at least he survived, because the victims in the next 9 shocking sport-related accidents never even got the chance. First, as always, viewer discretion is advised.
That's crazy.
On November 8th, 2019, 20-year-old gymnast Melanie Coleman entered New Era Gymnastics in Hamden, Connecticut, for what should have been just another training session. A nursing student at Southern Connecticut State University, Melanie had been successfully balancing schoolwork with her passion for the sport she dedicated her life to. That evening, she was practicing on the uneven bars, preparing for an upcoming competition. The routine required a release followed by a double back dismount, a difficult stunt, yet well within her skill level. But as Melanie swung through the air, her grip suddenly slipped. She rotated once, then twice, and instead of landing safely, she crashed neck first right into the ground. Emergency calls were placed within seconds as coaches rushed to stabilize her head and neck. Melanie was immediately transported to Yale New Haven Hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to repair the catastrophic spinal cord injury she had sustained. For 2 days, they fought to save her. But, unfortunately, on November 10th, 2019, Melanie Coleman was pronounced dead, surrounded by devastated family and teammates. At her funeral, classmates and fellow athletes remembered Melanie as vibrant, selfless, and full of life. In her memory, Melanie's mother, Susan Coleman, shared words that resonated with everyone who heard them. She was and will continue to be our light and love. We're going to leave an empty space in our photos of her. It's terrifying how a single slip can turn into a life-ending tragedy in just seconds. And the next case was no different. Except this time, the fatal blow came from the crushing weight of pure steel. On February 18th, 2025, inside a modest training gym in Bikaner, Rajasthan, India, 17-year-old Yashtika Acharya was preparing for yet another brutal session. Unlike everyone else in the gym that day, Yashtika was a rising star in Indian powerlifting, already a gold medalist at the National Bench Press Championship and one of the youngest champions in her weight class. That morning, she loaded the squat rack with 270 kilograms, more than triple her own body weight.
500
Yashtika
pounds?
stepped under the bar, with the coach spotting her directly from behind. But as soon as she unracked the bar and took a few careful steps backward, her body suddenly faltered. And before anyone could react, 270 kilograms of iron slipped from her shoulders and came crashing straight down on her neck. The coach and gym goers rushed to free her from beneath the bar and frantically called for an ambulance. But by the time she arrived at the hospital, it was, unfortunately, too late. The devastating force had instantly snapped her neck, and Yashtika was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The next case features another world-class athlete whose daring stunt was designed to thrill an arena,
this shit
but
crazy.
instead left thousands watching in horror. On May 23, 1999, the Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri was packed to the rafters with over 16,000 wrestling fans. The World Wrestling Federation's Over the Edge event was underway, and one of its most beloved and comedic characters was about to make an entrance unlike anything the audience had seen before. Owen Hart, a 34-year-old Canadian wrestler star and member of the legendary Hart family, was performing under his masked blue blazer persona. That night, the gimmick called for him to descend dramatically from the arena's rafters, suspended by a harness, a parody of superhero entrances popular in rival wrestling promotions at the time. But just moments before his descent, Owen decided to adjust his costume, and suddenly, the release mechanism designed for the stunt triggered prematurely. In an instant, the harness disengaged, and Owen Hart plummeted 24 meters straight down. Witnesses recall him shouting, "Look out!" as he fell, narrowly missing a ring announcer below. Then his chest slammed against the top rope and turnbuckle with devastating force, snapping his body backward before he collapsed motionless onto the mat. But the excitement quickly turned to horrified silence as the medics sprinted into the ring. Emergency crews swarmed him, performing CPR as cameras abruptly cut away from the scene. Within minutes, Owen was rushed to Truman Medical Center, but at 8:12 p.m., he succumbed to catastrophic internal bleeding from a torn aorta sustained upon impact with the ropes. Perhaps most shocking of all, the show continued mere moments later. Matches carried on even as Owen's blood still stained the ring. In the aftermath, his widow, Martha Hart, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the WWF, citing that Owen himself had expressed discomfort about the stunt during rehearsals. The case eventually settled for $18 million. Martha later founded the Owen Hart Foundation in his memory. The next tragedy was no less horrifying, only this time it unfolded out on open water during what should have been a serene surf session. On February 21st, 2025, under the bright sun of the quiet surf town of Copcaquira, Chile, Rinconada Beach was alive with surfers chasing the morning swell. Among them was 27-year-old Javiera Ortiz. Just weeks away from her wedding, Javiera had been sharing glimpses of preparations with her followers online, along with her love for surfing, a sport she used to overcome a lifelong fear of water by confronting it head-on every single day. That morning, she paddled out and waited for a wave just beyond the shoreline. At the same time, a small fishing panga piloted by a 60-year-old local fisherman was returning to shore. Chilling footage would later capture the boat cutting through the surf at speed, its bow slicing toward the beach. And by the time anyone realized Javiera was directly in its path, it was far too late. In one split second, the boat struck Javiera with devastating force, splintering her board and hurling the woman underwater. The blunt trauma to her head and arms knocked her unconscious almost instantly. Fellow surfers sprinted toward her, dragging her limp body back to shore as blood mingled with seawater around them. The fisherman himself cut the engine and jumped into the surf to help lift Javiera onto the sand. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, performing CPR as they rushed her toward the nearest clinic. But despite every effort, Javiera Ortiz was pronounced dead en route. In the days that followed, the fisherman was briefly arrested but later released because Rinconada Beach is a shared zone with no legal separation between surfers and incoming boats. Outrage sparked calls for reform, including speed limits, spotters for boats, and even physical barriers to prevent another tragedy. Yet to this day, none of those measures have been implemented. The haunting footage of Javiera's final moments has since gone viral, viewed by thousands around the world. And if simply watching it feels chilling, imagine seeing it happen to someone you love right in front of your eyes, which is exactly what unfolded in the next case, in the most
I ain't gonna lie. I can imagine that shit, fool. Like, I just imagine it, the head of the boat just slicing the girl's neck. That boat was going fast, for sure. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's shit,
fine way possible. On August 26, 2012, annual Wilhelm Unger Games in Düsseldorf, Germany were in full swing. That day, 18-year-old Fiona Strack, a teenage javelin thrower, was preparing for her turn to compete. And out on the field, proudly officiating the event, stood her grandfather, 74-year-old Dieter Strack. Dieter was a respected javelin judge who had spent decades mentoring young athletes and carefully measuring throws at competitions, just like this one. Before the event began, the two caught each other's eyes in the crowd and exchanged warm smiles across the field. At 10 a.m., the youth javelin event had just begun. Competitors, many barely in their teens, lined up to hurl their spears across the grassy pitch. At one point, as a 15-year-old athlete prepared to throw, Dieter stepped onto the field, clipboard in hand, to mark the distance of the previous attempt. In a horrifying twist of timing, the boy launched his javelin at that exact moment. The long, gleaming spear cutting through the air faster than anyone could react. Suddenly, it struck Dieter in the cheek and pierced deep into his neck, severing his carotid artery. Stunned, he staggered backward, crying out in shock, and, in a desperate reflex, pulled the javelin from his own body before collapsing onto the grass. The stadium erupted in screams. Coaches, medics, and fellow officials sprinted toward him, while Fiona, frozen in fear, watched helplessly as rescuers desperately fought to save her grandfather, just meters from where she had been waiting to compete. Dieter was rushed to Dusseldorf University Hospital, where surgeons attempted emergency repair. But by the next day, August 27, 2012, he was tragically gone. In the weeks that followed, local athletics meets opened with solemn moments of silence to honor Dieter, while investigators ultimately ruled his death a tragic accident. Yet as shocking as this case was, the next tragedy was even harder to comprehend, and it even sparked whispers of witchcraft. It was a humid afternoon in October 1998 in the remote village of Benachadi, deep in the Kasai province of what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. A small local football match was underway. Benachadi's home team facing their longtime rivals from the nearby village of Basonga. The score was tied 1-1, and despite dark storm clouds rolling in overhead, the game continued. Still, moments later, nature struck in one of the most chilling and inexplicable ways ever recorded on a football pitch. A single bolt of lightning slammed into the field, and shockingly, it struck only the Benachadi team. All 11 players collapsed instantly, their bodies motionless on the grass. Meanwhile, the Basonga players standing just meters away remained completely unharmed. More than 30 spectators in the stands were also injured by the surge, suffering burns and temporary paralysis. In the chaos, witnesses screamed and rushed the pitch, while others froze in disbelief at the eerie sight. One entire team wiped out, the other still standing. The bizarre, one-sided nature of the accident fueled local superstitions almost immediately. Villagers whispered that Basonga's team had cursed their opponents, and that the lightning strike was no accident, but sorcery. Yet the mystery behind this tragedy lingers to this day, with no conclusive explanation ever found. The next tragic accident on the football field wasn't shrouded in mysticism, yet it was no less shocking and triggered by nothing more than a single, ill-fated victory flip. This footage captures a moment of pure joy. It was the 62nd minute of a Mizoram Premier League match in India on October 14, 2014. Bethlehem Vangtlang FC had just scored an equalizer against Chanmari West, thanks to their energetic young midfielder, 23-year-old Peter Byaksangzwala. Jubilant, Peter sprinted toward the sideline and launched into his trademark celebration, a series of backflips that always sent the crowd into a frenzy. However, this time, something went horribly wrong. On his second flip, Peter misjudged his rotation. He landed awkwardly, neck first, right in front of his stunned teammates. In an instant, the cheers turned to horrified silence. Players rushed to his side as he lay motionless on the grass, his body twisted unnaturally. Medical staff carried Peter off the field and transported him to Aizawl Civil Hospital, where surgeons fought to repair his shattered spine. For 5 days, fans and teammates clung to hope, but despite every effort, Peter succumbed to his injuries on October 19, 2014. His club retired his number 21 jersey, and the entire Mizoram football community mourned a player known not just for his skill, but for his relentless energy and infectious positivity. Heartbreakingly, the next case also began with a single jump gone wrong, only this time it was performed high above the ground in one of the most dangerous sports.
I'm scared of doing it, bro.
It was October 5th, 2003, and hundreds of spectators lined the cliffs of Colorado's
Someone
Royal
gotta push
Gorge,
me off there, John.
waiting for the grand finale of the inaugural Go Fast Games, a festival celebrating some of the world's most daring base jumpers and wingsuit pilots. Among the headliners was 30-year-old Australian Dwayne Weston, already regarded as one of the sport's most skilled and fearless pioneers. The stunt planned for that day had never been attempted before. Two jumpers, Weston and his close friend Jeb Corliss, would leap from a plane and perform simultaneous pauses at the Royal Gorge Bridge. Corliss would soar beneath it, while Weston would glide just meters above the deck in his bright red wingsuit. Around midday, the crowd tilted their heads skyward as Weston exited the aircraft from roughly 366 meters above the gorge. Hurtling downward at nearly 190 kilometers per hour, he carved a graceful arc toward the bridge, and for a few seconds, everything seemed perfect. But as Weston closed in, he realized, far too late, that he was descending lower than he should have been. And before anyone could even gasp, his legs smashed against the bridge's steel railing.
Ooh.
The impact was so violent that it tore one of them clean off.
Ooh.
His parachute deployed automatically from the collision, but Weston was now spinning wildly out of control, trailing blood as he plummeted nearly 300 meters into the jagged rocks below. Unfortunately, the impact was unsurvivable. Weston died instantly from catastrophic trauma, while Corliss, flying just beneath, narrowly missed colliding with his friend and landed safely, horrified at what he had just witnessed. Later, Corliss would recall that before every jump, including this one, Dwayne had always said the same phrase, "Whatever happens, happens." Fighting back tears, he then added, Dwayne was doing what he loved. I guarantee you, he didn't have a problem with what happened. Our final case today can be described as a truly sinister chain of events, one that led to the most tragic outcome of all. On March 5th, 1977, the sun beat down on Kyalami Circuit as engines screamed along the track during the South African Grand Prix. The 26 drivers competing that day was 27-year-old Welshman Tom Price, a rising Formula One star, renowned for his raw speed and exceptional skill even in wet conditions. Many believed Tom was destined to become a world champion. But on lap 22nd, fate intervened in a way so shocking and improbable that it still haunts the sport nearly 50 years later. Moments earlier, Price's teammate, Renzo Zorzi, had pulled over on the main straight after his car erupted in flames. The fire wasn't yet catastrophic, but thick plumes of smoke quickly drew the attention of two volunteer marshals standing on the opposite side of the track. Among them was 19-year-old Frederick Jansen van Vuren, carrying an 18-kilogram fire extinguisher. Without waiting for clearance, both men sprinted across the live track, hoping to reach the burning car before the flames grew worse. The first driver to reach them, Hans Joachim Stuck, swerved violently and somehow avoided a collision. But Tom Price was following directly behind Stuck at full racing speed, nearly 270 kilometers per hour, and with zero visibility ahead due to the slope of the track. On January continued mere moments later, standing just meters away, remains Joachim Stuck, swerved violently and somehow avoided a collision. But Tom Price was following directly behind Stuck at full racing speed, nearly 270 kilometers per hour, and with zero visibility ahead due to the slope of the track. He simply had no time to react. In an instant, Price's Shadow DN8 struck Van Vuren at full force. The impact killed the young marshal instantly, his body thrown aside with devastating violence. But unfortunately, the tragedy didn't end there. At one point, the fire extinguisher Van Vuren had been carrying was launched upward by the collision, and, in a cruel twist of fate, slammed directly into Price's helmet with such force that it tore it clean off. The blow was instantly fatal, decapitating him in front of thousands of spectators on live television cameras. At the same time, Price's car, now driverless, continued down the straight, scraping barriers and colliding with Jacques Lafitte's Ligier, before finally coming to a stop in a twisted heap. Trackside, medics rushed in, but neither Price nor Van Vuren could be saved. Both had been killed instantly in one of the most horrific accidents in Formula One history. According to data from the World Health Organization, an estimated 40 to 50 million sport-related accidents occur worldwide each year, and tragically, between 8,000 and 15,000 of them prove fatal. Meanwhile, these 10 chilling cases we covered today are part of that grim statistic, and a sobering reminder of just how dangerous sports can truly be. Now, let me ask you, which of these tragedies shook you the most? And what kind of sport do you personally consider the most dangerous? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.
I don't know. I ain't gonna lie, the boat thing, that shook me the most, for sure. But I don't know what sport is the most dangerous. I don't know. That's a good question.